Hi, I'm Kate Alexander, and I am the Associate Director of Florida Studio Theater. I'm a theater director, and I've been an actress for many years, and kind of co-built this theater with my associate and partner in the theater, but I really didn't have any business being in the theater. I was a morbidly shy little girl and very, very quiet. And I had a rich life of the imagination, but if you had said, you're going to be on stage and you really have talent, I was not the child. I was an observer. I lived in an imaginary world, and I really didn't have the guts to go after that dream until I was in college. I got into school, and I loved language, and I loved words, and I loved feeling, and I loved observing people. But what I saw in theater was a lot of people running around with capes and acting strange and kind of acting out, and I wasn't that way. I was the person that was kind of watching people. And then when I got to college, it was a lot of musicals, which I love. I just directed a musical that we're sitting on, but there were a lot of crazy kids that were just running around being flamboyant. And there was kind of no place for me. One day I was reading a book, and it was by Sonia Moore, who studied with Stanislavski in Russia. That time I didn't know who that was or what the method was. But as I was reading the book in school, the words seemed to jump off the page. They not only jumped off the page, they were alive to me. It was as if I heard them, I felt them in my stomach. And it said that acting is truth. There is nothing but truth. That's what you seek, that's what you want, and our goal is not to imitate life, but to bring its greater truth, to put the mirror up to nature. And as I'm reading these words, as it's time kind of stopped, it was an epiphany or a metaphysical moment. And I turned the book over, and it said Sonia Moore, New York City. So I flew to New York, and I interviewed a few schools, but she is who I wanted to talk to. And I came upon an ancient lady. She had white hair, she was bony, Russian, and I immediately knew that in that first instant that I wanted to work with her, that I wanted to know her, I wanted to be in her presence. And there's a line that I always love, that genius is not intellect, it's somebody whose presence has changed you. Well, there are people's presences who you walk into and you're changed. The Dalai Lama is one whose his presence changes you. Her presence changed me. Walking into the force field of this Russian woman who said, you know, all right, I take you. And I'm like, well, what books do you want me to read, and what should I do? She said, no books, you need teacher. I finished my college degree, you know, with this lackluster theater degree that meant nothing to me. It was just get up there and do it and imitate it, and oh, she's pretty, she'll be good, and it had no meaning. And I went to New York and lived in a hovel and started to study, and we couldn't speak for a year. Well, no, 6 months. And we had to walk through a door, and when we walked through, if it wasn't written on your hand, your emotion, and right up into your heart, into your face, into your eyes, she would go back, horrible. And your body, they worked with your body and your kinesthesiology and your emotions without speech. And I still quote her all the time. She said, words are toy boats on the water. We need water. So for 6 months we worked on water. And after 6 months we got the tiniest little speech. And it was amazing. And it was like a little butterfly out of a chrysalis. I just bloomed. It was where I belonged. It taught me everything. It's the foundation of our theater school. It's the foundation of everything that I do. That was a seminal experience that the whole future was predicated on. And after that, I started working. And I started working in Washington, D.C., in Alice in Wonderland, and doing children's theater, and moving forward, and then came here and planned to stay in Florida a year, 2 years. But this theater had 80 people that came to it. It was a little hut, and one door opened to another. I think I've always followed that kind of path that I think Joseph Campbell is one of my favorite. It must be a lot of people's, but to follow your bliss. I never had an image of what I was supposed to be. What I always listened to was, what is this true sentence right now? What do I have to do right now? And what feels right? And that door led to another and led to another. I think it surprised me that I was here in Florida so long and helped build a theater. Was an integral part of it. And when I say build a theater, I mean build an audience. From 80 people, we now have over 160,000 every year. So building a theater was building a dialogue with lots of people, and a rich dialogue with people. It's tough to have an honest dialogue in our culture. So we'll go hard-hitting and celebratory, but that is what theater is, and it's the language of who we are, and the mirror of who we are right now in this time and space. What do we need to dream about? What do we need to think about? And what do we need to look at together? And it doesn't ever purport that the artists, we don't have the answers. We're putting things on stage to start that dialogue and that self-investigation. Yeah, we had many, many challenges starting this theater. Well, first, you had to give up 10 years of your life. We did not have air conditioning here, or we wouldn't have paychecks. So I slept on a mattress on the floor, and I think people were more comfortable being poor then. There was something called Towards a Poor Theater, and you didn't get out of school with these huge college loans and insurances. So it was very common. You were supposed to knock around the country, knock around theaters. In fact, the regional theater movement is a new movement since the 70s. Before that, most theater was centralized in New York City, and then it became decentralized. And we were part of getting in on grants, and the idea of that theater was happening all over, like in London or England. But we were poor, and we had bomb threats. We had, because we did controversial plays, we had dog sniffers. We were the first theater in Sarasota to bring in bad words. And then it was like really placid, and the Oslo was doing, who is still here and is a wonderful theater, was doing great repertory and a lot of Shakespeare and Moliere. Well, here comes this heavy-duty rock and roll theater that's doing Mamet and Pinter, and they're saying the F word. And it's like, oh my God. You know, there was always something that said, you know, you can't belong yet. Even our Write a Play program. I went to a lot of people in town and said, I have a Write a Play program for children. They said, well, we don't need you. We have all that we need in this town, and we don't have any funding, but good luck. And it took us one person at a time. That's kind of how we built the theater, one person at a time. We started our school with 8 students and now has 600. We started our Write a Play with 30 children. We now have 55,000 that we're reaching all over the world. And it was never, I won't say it was never, it was always one person at a time, communicating in that sense of dialogue. I've never been good at anything that wasn't organic. I never said, here's the program, let's kick it off. We're going to hit 55,000 this year. It's going to be here, here, and here. It had to grow organically and kind of purely. And our mission was great theater, affordable prices. We wanted everybody to come. You want the postman to come, the divorcee to come, the socialite to come, and to be in an environment where they're rubbing elbows. What we loved about European theater, about theater in London or New York, is you rub elbows, the elite and the street. You can be in a mink coat in here, you can be in jeans. We all come, it's like Shakespeare. At the Globe, everybody came, groundlings and queens. And I think everyone's creative. I think people choose creative lives or choose creativity to be the part and parcel for their life. I know when I am is when I move past editing, self-editing, and I move past cliche, and I move past all those things in your way, the self-judgment, and then a third emotion or a third spirit or third energy starts taking over, and it's developing right there. But it's developing, and I'm making choices because of 1,000 influences that I allow in, and then I start creating. You know, I love dreams because they are the one thing you can't control. I can't say, oh, I'm going to have this dream. These are these deep pictures that come from deep resources within yourself. So I love everything that's unprogrammed. To be creative is to move past all of your own boundaries and to risk. I think I know the things that I need to do. I know when I'm frightened, it's a good thing. I know that I certainly believe that courage is moving despite fear, Antoine Exupéry. So when I'm safe and protected, I'm not creating. You know, I did a play, Goldest Balcony, and I had dread every single night. Every night before I'd go on, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this. And, you know, I'd go tell the stage manager, I don't know if I can do it tonight. And even directing, I have dread going in. It's not like, oh, it's gonna be a wonderful production. It's not safe, but that fear makes me work and makes me alert, and I move past what I expected of myself and others. And I love to see others transcend the boundaries of what we are. In fact, my big question is, what are our boundaries? And that's a whole philosophical other discussion, but I think what we call personality and boundaries are pretty permeable, and we can move past ourselves pretty easy if we have the right forum. We allow risk, we allow challenge, and we have others that are disciplined, that give us an environment to create. I think one of the big things that are in the way of creativity, and still I can't answer the question, I can say around it, but is criticism. That's what we work with children all the time, the sense of the inner critic editing yourself, the inner judge, other people judging you, other people watching, people, you know, being cool. Being cool is the most anathema to creativity. Creativity is being dumb. It's making 1,000 dumb mistakes. It's allowing yourself to be dumb, stupid, to risk, to make wrong choices. And then something third happens. And you have to allow that. And I think for me, the big question, the big need of our culture is to get out of that sense of cool and judgment and hipness. And you can see it on almost every television show that you watch. And it's really pervasive, I know, with young people, etc. So creating an environment that I think creativity can happen, because it takes a great amount of discipline, self-discipline. I often think of a theater, it's not to feed you. It's not like a film or something that just is in the present, just gives you something. Here it is, here's life, here's your answer. It's a deep questioning and a deep reflection for people. And I firmly believe people want that. I think we all do. I think we're all on, I think after a certain point you realize life is short. We're not here for a long time, and it's a beautiful journey of humanity. And it's always, I love the line that says, you know, religion prepares us for the great moments of our lives, you know, birth, death, marriage, divorce, it helps us through that. But the theater prepares us every day.